Welcome to the Daily Swole. Welcome everybody to the Daily Swole. Number 16, today we're talking about deadlifts, and I felt like standing. I'm gonna try different things in different angles, so today I'm feel like moving around a little bit. I'm feeling a little sexy today, so welcome to the show. Number 16, Daily Swole, Game of Thrones Day, got a lot of stuff going on. So I want to talk about deadlifts, and like I said, I wanted to talk about Jon Snow lifts, but at the same time, can't do that anymore, so we'll just keep on calling them deadlifts. So I'll be taking Q&A at the end, and again, I'm on Busker and I'm also on Periscope. So let's get into why deadlifts are so important. Deadlifts are a compound exercise. Let's talk about deadlifts being a compound exercise first and foremost. Now, when you are looking to build muscle, lose fat, do anything in fitness, strengthen your core, there are a lot of people that want shape. There are a lot of people that talk about core, but they don't really know what core is. So we're going to talk about core a little bit. Deadlifts are a compound exercise, and what a compound exercise is a multi-joint exercise. So for example, a barbell curl or a bicep curl or a dumbbell curl is just a single joint up and down. That's fine. That's a great exercise. Now, a compound exercise is, for example, a deadlift or a bench press, for example, would also be a compound exercise. And that's just using multiple joints. So you have the shoulder, you have the elbow, you have multiple joints working to perform a task. Now, there's a reason for those exercises, the reason why those exercises could be safer in certain situations and could be beneficial as opposed to a single joint. Multi-joint exercises are very functional. Whenever you do anything in life, you're using multiple joints. So you're not always just doing, okay, let me just lift my elbows. Let me just lift with one joint all the time. You're lifting things, you're picking things up off the ground. It's very functional to use multiple joints. So that's really understandable. Anything you do, getting out of a car, multiple joints. When you're picking something off the ground, multiple joints. When you're grabbing a towel off the shelf, multiple joints. So a multi-joint exercise using in functional training for someone who's older, for someone who's trying to lose weight, for someone who's trying to build muscle, super important. You can go heavier on multi-joint exercises. This is a reason why you cannot do, and it's very, very unrecommended. That's not even a word. It's not recommended to do anything max on single joint. Only on multiple joint exercises, like a bench press, like a deadlift, like a squat. Those are the exercises that you mostly see max reps done because it's safer. Anytime you do a max rep or a really heavy load on a single joint exercise, you risk a lot of injury, and plus it's really hard to accomplish. It's really hard to isolate just the elbow joint for a curl. And there's really no point. There's really no point to see how much you max curl. You never hear anyone come up to you in the gym and say, hey man, how much you max curl? No one gives a shit. Because it's not a quantifiable measurement. It's not a really good metric to gauge someone's fitness. A bench press, a pushing movement, a compound pushing movement, deadlift, a total body lifting movement, a squat, pretty much a total body lifting movement for the legs. Those are all very viable exercises to determine whether or not your strength is improving systemically on a larger scale. It's very functional. That's why they're used for football. That's why they're used for a lot of pro sports, because they're using multiple joints during the sport, and it's a good way to measure someone's progress or someone's strength, or like, person A versus person B. This person benches more, or squats more, or deadlifts more. They might be overall have more strength. And then we combine that with other metrics like speed and sprinting, 40-yard dash. I'm using football, for example. Those can be beneficial measurements. So getting back to the deadlift. The deadlift is, of course, a compound exercise, and it's using every muscle in the body. If you had to do one exercise, only in the gym, just one exercise, do the deadlift, because you're using grip strength, you're using your upper body, you're using your core. Your core is your hips all the way to the cervical spine. So the lower back, right above the hips, the glutes included, all the way up to the cervical spine. So when you are using the entire body for an exercise, you're targeting, of course, more muscle groups, and it's a better metric. It's a better measurement. It's a better measurement of your overall fitness and your capacity. Not to mention, I've mentioned other daily swoles. I mentioned it on Snapchat. I've mentioned it on Anchor. I've mentioned it on Twitter, on Facebook, on my website. I mentioned it all over the place that when you are trying to reduce body fat, now pay attention, okay? Ladies and men alike, and even especially women, because women usually shy away from weights. And women usually don't want to lift weights, and deadlifts usually look like a big, bulky, big mass building exercise. If you are trying to lose weight, you have to lose weight systemically. The best exercise to do for systemic weight loss are total compound movements. And the deadlift is one of the best things to do because it activates all the musculature all the way up your core, from your hips all the way to your thoracic spine and to your cervical spine. And not to mention that, it really works your glutes, which strengthens your hips specifically. A lot of times when people do deadlifts, they use the back too much, they lean forward too much, they don't activate the glutes. The deadlift is not a lower back exercise. The deadlifts aren't even really a leg exercise. It's a glute exercise. There's a reason why when you do deadlifts, you're not really doing a ton of knee flexion. You're doing mostly hip extension. Mostly hip extension. And if you're feeling it in your lower back, you're doing too much weight, your form is improper, and you're not activating your glutes enough. So if you're trying to fix lower back problems, if you're trying to improve your posture, you're trying to activate your core over the entire body, you need to give deadlifts a try. Everyone should be doing deadlifts. Everyone, I don't care how old you are, you can just adjust the weight. If you have bad joints for whatever reason, from a car accident, from an injury prior, then you need to adjust the range of motion. Don't go down all the way. Do rack pulls where you put the bar higher up. Another thing, there's a reason why those bumper plates in CrossFit or powerlifting are big. Okay, there's a reason why they're all the same size. A lot of times people think, oh, they're fake plates. People want to feel like they're lifting more weight. That couldn't be more wrong. Understand that if you're in a CrossFit gym, I use that for an example because that's the most popular place you're going to find bumper plates. If you are using those bumper plates, the reason why they're all the same size is so the deadlift, for lifts, for Olympic lifting off the ground, is all the same height. It has absolutely nothing to do with wanting to look like you're lifting more weight. That's a huge misnomer. They show people squatting with the bumper plates on. Oh, they want to make it look like they're using 45s. Maybe. If you're doing squats, maybe. But when you use a 10-pound plate, like a regular, metal or whatever, 10-pound plate, or a 25-pound plate, they're smaller. So if you're doing a deadlift, for example, you're bending over too far because the bar is too close to the ground now. That's why a 10-pound plate will be very thin and really wide, like a 45, to adjust for that distance off the ground. That's super important. Most people, when they're in the gym and they can't lift 45s, especially in a regular gym where there's no bumper plates available, they pull too close to the ground. They're not setting it up properly. So if you have to deadlift at a gym and you only have access to those metal plates, get supports or stack some plates up so you're resting the bar at a higher level. Go into that power rack where you can put the rails, okay? And make sure you're not deadlifting from too low a position because you can only hurt yourself in that position. You're only gonna put a lot of pressure on your back and it's not effective, okay? If you're trying to ramp up your metabolism for increasing testosterone production to build muscle, male or female, if you're looking to burn fat over your entire body, compound movements, deadlifts. Deadlifts activate more than a squat. Deadlifts activate more than a bench press. Deadlifts are the number one total body exercise you could possibly do. Everyone should be doing deadlifts. You can do it on a back day. You can do it on a leg day. You can do deadlifts on a separate day completely. But the most important thing is that you are doing deadlifts. You absolutely have to do deadlifts in your workout. Okay? If you're trying to burn fat, if you're trying to increase your metabolism, you need more muscle, more lean mass, more fat-free mass over your entire body. And the best way to do that is, we just talked about it, deadlifts. Deadlifts. So, in your routine, and I'll be posting some videos on how to do a deadlift. I have a lot of videos, a lot of things I'm going to post, but it's going to be very instructional. It may or may not even be with a straight bar. It might even just be with a dowel or just like a, like a wooden stick, because the form is number one. Don't worry about the weight, worry about the form. More often than not, if you're concerned with how much weight you're lifting, you're going to be injuring yourself just because you're ego lifting. Okay, that's one of the problems with deadlifts. I see a lot of people doing it improperly because they're trying to go up way too high. They want to do a 45, then they want to do more, they want to see more on the bar. And then they lose track of what their form is, and then all of a sudden, they just fall apart. Okay? Deadlifts does, I cannot stress this enough. I want everyone to start implementing that into their workout. So stay tuned for some more videos on the deadlift. I'm definitely going to go into this in more detail on YouTube. I'll put some videos up, and I want everyone to start thinking systemic. If you're trying to lose weight, trying to build muscle, it doesn't matter. You have to build muscle. Building muscle will, of course, help you build muscle. And building muscle will also help you burn fat. The more fat-free mass, meaning muscle, that you have, the more fat you will burn throughout the entire day. At rest, when you're on the toilet, when you're cooking dinner, when you're in the shower, when you're watching Game of Thrones, you'll be burning more fat. So you have to make sure that your body is ramped up. You gotta stoke that fire. You gotta make sure that your body is in this fat burning zone. And the fat burning zone is going to be when you have more lean mass. When you have more lean mass, yeah, honestly, you can cheat more. You can slack more. You can slack on your diet more. I'm not saying do that, but you're burning more calories. Your resting metabolic rate is higher because you have more tissue that requires energy, that requires calories to be used. So if you're doing deadlifts and you are really, stressing them, you don't have to go super heavy. You can do 6, 8, 10, 12, 15, you can do 20 reps for deadlifts, but make sure the form is tight, draw the abdominals in, squeeze the butt, and understand that it's a glute exercise. You might feel fatigued in your back, you might feel sore, you might feel tight in your lower back the next day because some of those stabilizers might be weak, might not be working properly. But if you're not used to deadlifts, don't go to failure. Focus on your glutes, focus on your hip extension, squeeze your butt on the way up and on the way down. Start doing rack pulls when you're starting at a higher level. Okay, you're not going all the way down to the ground. Start with like some supports, go in the rack where you're starting maybe pulling from just below the knees, and then build up. Okay, make sure that you're keeping your chest up, and I'll go over that form in some other videos. But deadlifts are absolutely important, and they're important for everyone. They're important for everyone. Definitely add deadlifts. Okay, let's take some questions. Any questions about deadlifts? Any questions about compound exercise, multi-joint, specifically deadlifts? Let's see, good question. When should you do deadlifts? You could do deadlifts, like I said, you could do deadlifts on back day. You can do deadlifts on leg day. You can do deadlifts on its own day. My only recommendation is that you don't do deadlifts necessarily every week. You can, but just don't go heavy every week. And make sure that you keep in mind that when you're doing deadlifts, make sure you're not, if you're doing legs or deadlifts on leg day, be careful. Be careful that you're doing deadlifts and then you're doing squats, then you're doing lunges, then you're doing leg curls. Be careful with how much volume you do. Because don't forget, once you do a certain exercise at the beginning, you're fatiguing muscles for the subsequent exercises. So if you start going really heavy later and you're not used to it, let's say you're not built up to it already, just be careful because your stabilizers, your core, your midsection, your transverse abdominis, all those stabilizers that protect your lower back and your midsection do fatigue. And if you're not used to doing this kind of training, you're not used to doing deadlifts, not used to doing stabilizer work or with proper form, those muscles are going to fatigue a lot quicker. How much weight? Lighter. Less is more. Less is more. Ronnie Coleman snapped his back from deads. Yeah, well, how many deadlifts has that guy done? How many 800-pound deadlifts has he done over his career? So, sometimes it's a straw that broke the camel's back. Steroids and all that stuff wears down the body. It might build up muscle, but also, all those heavy weights, it affects the discs, degenerates discs and things like that. And not to mention, shit happens. Sometimes things just go pop. So lightweight, start with the bar. Start with the bar with good form. Go in the rack. Go in that power rack with the bars, and start at just above the knees and focus on forms. Focus on keeping your stomach in and drawing the butt forward and pulling the knees up into the quads. And I'll have to do another video where I go into the form. I do a visual so you can associate that, and I'll link it under this Daily Swole. When I get this up in YouTube in the next week, I will put a link when I get the other video up in the description, and plus on other Daily Swoles and on my Snapchat. Just follow me on Snapchat because then I will be updating. Snapchat's where I'm going to give you an update when I post a new video. So if you're following me on all those media, when I do my story and I post something on Snap, you'll see when I upload that video. What other compound exercises are there? Anything multi-joint is a compound exercise. So bench press, shoulders and elbows. Squat, you're doing ankle, knees, hips. So it's anything with multi-joint, shoulder, overhead press is still a compound exercise. Is rack good for back development? Sure. If you're doing a rack pull, you can isolate. Anything. The reason why I like these, and you don't want to do things like hyperextensions where you're like hanging over, going up and down. You don't want to do those exercises. Those are really bad for you. Those are terrible exercises. If you're doing rack pulls or doing any kind of deadlift, it's strengthening your lower back. Just because you don't feel like your lower back breaking or snapping in half doesn't mean it's not working your lower back. Remember, your lower back is all about stability. Okay, your hips are about mobility, your thoracic spine is about mobility. In the middle, you want stability. Your body alternates mobile and stable joints. So if you have a stable joint in the lower back, you don't want a lot of movement. You don't want a lot of flexion. You don't want to be bending and doing a ton of flexion extension, especially weighted. So things like Supermen are better. Things like planks are better. Things like deadlifts where your lower back is stable and locked in place are better because they're focusing on stability in the lower back. If you're doing hanging, back extensions, hyper extensions, you're gonna fuck your back up. That's one of the worst exercises you could possibly do. All those machines should be burned and remelted and made into bacon. Recycling machines for bacon. Any other questions? Those are good questions. Those are really good questions. Very, very good. So deadlifts, number one. Let's go into some other details. First off, Game of Thrones on tonight. Hell fuck yeah. I'm going to be posting some more videos. I just posted up. It's a couple days behind because the videos take a lot of space. Number 11, Daily Swole. There will be a new Swole motion coming out. So those of you that are watching live, there's some updates coming and there's gonna be more exercise videos like this. Just straight up tripod work, gonna be shooting some vids and getting it out there, putting on Periscope. It's gonna be super cool. So all these exercises I'm referring to, they're gonna be instructional videos, which has to happen. And that's something that just takes time and it will get out there. But once it's on YouTube and once it's out there, it'll be out there permanently. So you'll have that. Very important that you look into deadlifts. Very important that you start doing deadlifts. Very important, number one, form. I don't care how much weight you lift. I'd rather you use a broomstick with better form than 10 pounds with bad form. Because in the long run, you're going to hurt yourself. And if you're doing bad form, you're not hitting the muscles you're supposed to, so it's a waste of time. Okay, make sure you're doing it properly. Oh, you have ISA NASM. Good. Oh, I taught for NASM for 4 years. So NASM rocks. I missed that question on Periscope. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Appreciate the sentiments. If you have any questions, let me know. Any questions, especially on certification, things like that, because that's my wheelhouse. Not too familiar with the details of the ISSA, but good certifications for sure. You have any other questions on deadlifts? Any other questions? I'm gonna stay online for a couple of minutes after. I'm gonna wrap up the podcast like I normally do. Thank you so much for joining. Remember, hold that question. That's a good one, Tommy. Remember, Snapchat, Swolenormous, everything Swolenormous, Busker, Periscope, YouTube, Swolenormous. All these daily swoles are posted same day. So the video will be a few days behind because of the editing needed, but the podcast will be up today, okay? So number 6 will be up and it's on SoundCloud, soundcloud.com/Swolenormous. And that's where you're gonna get, right away you'll get the podcast, you'll get all the audio so you can listen to in the car if you missed a spot or you wanna kinda go over some things again, okay? So SoundCloud, podcast, it will be on iTunes soon, fingers crossed. And there are, let's see, Twitter, Facebook, anywhere you can find, anywhere you have a social media website, type in Swolenormous and you're gonna find me, okay? Any questions, any requests for Daily Swole. I also do online fitness coaching. You can message me on Snapchat. You can email me at swolenormous@gmail.com. You can message me and type in here on Periscope. It's going to disappear. So contact me. Get in touch with me. You can message me on Instagram. I forgot about Instagram. There's so many platforms out there. Instagram, Swolenormous. So message me, contact me if you're interested in anything for accountability, program design, nutritional guidance, any of those things. Super cool. Thank you very much for joining this edition of the Daily Swole. I love it. I love it. The Daily Mother Swole. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I'll stay for a couple minutes after. Thank you for joining the Daily Swole. I will see you tomorrow at 12 noon Eastern Time. Peace out.